This is VProm 3, a recreation of the Lindrum drum machine. But it's not just a drum machine. VProm 3 is the third iteration of VProm, a drum machine first introduced in 2014 by Aly James' lab. While it recreates an iconic drum machine from the 80s, since it's sample-based, it could do so much more than just play drum samples. You could import samples of other sounds and create your own kits with it. Okay, I already hear some of you asking, who cares? There are other drum machines out there that do the same thing, that let you import your samples. What makes VProm 3 so special? Because EPROMs. Oh, I should probably explain what that is too. An EPROM is a form of memory. The acronym stands for Erasable Programmable Read-Only Memory, and many drum machines of the time use this format to store their samples. VProm's earlier versions gave you the ability to load in your own samples, but they had to be in the EPROM format, or on a computer, a ULAW binary raw data file. That changed in VProm 3 since it can now import wave samples and convert them to the EPROM format directly in the plugin itself. Previously, if you wanted to make EPROM files, you would have to use either hardware like an EPROM burner or software like Promenade or even Audacity. But why EPROM samples? Because the sound is cool. For instance, here's samples that I recorded in 48 kHz at 24-bit, and I'm running them through this drum machine. Now here are those same samples converted to the EPROM format in VProm 3. Now it sounds like that because the EPROM conversion greatly reduces the quality of the samples. While samples were originally 24 bits at 48 kHz, they're now 8 bits at 27 kHz. Now while it sounds similar to bit crushing, it's different because bit crushing is an effect that would apply to the overall output of the sound, whereas this is actually affecting the sample directly. If I were to change the pitch of, say, these original samples here with the bit crush effect, it's going to sound more like this. But if I were to do that directly in VProm, it's actually going to sound like this. It's going to sound much grittier and crunchier. Let's go try this out. To load in your own sample, you go over to this button here on the main page and click Load. And it will bring up your file browser. Go over to the location where you have your samples that you want to import. Click on this little button right here to preview the sound. And if you like that sound, hit the button above it called Burn, and you have now successfully converted it into the format for VProm. To actually load it into any of these slots, you go over to this page, click Prom, find the sound that you want to put it into, let's say Rimshot. And then you will go over here, find the sample. By the way, when you do convert your samples, they're going to end up in this location here, User Converted. Hit Close, go back to the main page, and you can make changes to it, like pitch, panning, and volume. These little indicator lights down here, if they are red, that indicates that it's the factory preset. The orange-yellow indicates that you have loaded your own custom sample into that slot. Now for the sounds in that demo, I used all of my own custom recordings, and I did use some drum samples, but I also used other ones. The first sound that you hear is that chord, and it was a synthesizer that I played a minor 7th, and I had it in 3 slots. I have it here, now, these samples are actually just sustaining. They're completely ringing out. And the reason why those samples are kind of just as long as they are is because you can actually modify the decay. The hi-hat has a decay setting right here, and it's still relatively short even at the highest setting. But for longer samples, like I have these chords, in the slots that they're in, they will just ring out as long as the sample goes. The kick and toms, I sampled from my SDS-8. The snare is a custom snare that I sound designed. Here I have a guitar sound that I sampled last summer-ish, around there. Not quite a bass, but it is pitched down, so it sounds very bass-like. The clap, I have a very interesting sound. It's originally a bell tree sample, I believe. A very, very aliased bell tree sample that I have it pitched all the way down, so it has this kind of sort of pseudo Resident Evil type of sound. Whatever tuning it was at. And I have right in the middle of the 2 toms, I have this noisy kind of sample. And this was a very resonant noise synth that I designed a while ago that was recorded at a very, very high pitch and was then pitched down. And of course, it's at a lower pitch here as well. So that's why it's extra gritty and bit crushed. Up here I do have another guitar-like sound, and I don't know if it actually is a guitar, it's just some stringed instrument. And it was recorded very, very quietly, I think accidentally, which is why it's so noisy. It's because I amplified it quite a bit. And I have that, of course, running through a pitch shifter and delay effect. Now for the hi-hats, the interesting thing about the hi-hats on this instrument, even the original, is that there were 2 settings. There was the closed hi-hat and then an open hi-hat. The hi-hat actually had a very, very short decay, but the sound would loop, and that would be what you heard in the open hi-hat slot. What I have here is a sample that has a very, very short decay, and because of that, if you were to play that in the open hi-hat slot, since it loops, you're going to hear it repeat rather than it being a continuous sustained sort of sound. So here is the sound in the closed hi-hat. It's just a block. And then in the open, it's this. You hear it repeating, and that's the loop. And if you want to cut off the open hi-hat, just hit one of the other hi-hat notes. And the cowbell is just a cowbell. It's actually very similar to how people would use the EMU SB12 and 1200 to take samples of things besides drums and then make entire songs with them. To further show you what you could use this kind of thing for in ways that aren't just catered to just drums, I have here this other sound for the other track using, I think, a total of 4 different samples across all these different channels here. I have a plucked sound for this. So 1 sample for 5 channels, and I have the same sample for 2 other channels. I have I have that same guitar-like sample from the other track. I've got this noisy sample again in the claps, and you can hear in the hi-hats the difference between the closed and the open. And then there's this other chord sound right here, very short. And then this weird, very distorted sound, which is pitched way the hell down. And then this sound up here, which is kind of like a sort of a Sauron, gamelan type sound. And of course, all of that together makes that track that you just heard. And that's VProm 3. It's not the SP12, nor is it as versatile, but you could do some pretty cool things with it, with its layout and the ability to add in your own samples and turn them into just 8-bit goodness. And as I showed you, you don't have to use just drums. You could use any samples that you want, just as long as you're comfortable with all of those digital artifacts that come in from reducing the quality of the samples at the sample level and not just adding a bit crusher to the sound. I'll definitely be using this for more experimental stuff like this in the future because it's just cool to do so, I think. And I don't think you really need a reason to do things that are cool. If you find something cool, do it. So I'm going to do it. And I'll see you next time. Later.